Excellent!
What's up guys, welcome back to Paul's Hardware. This is my monthly builds video for January 2019. I usually do this at the beginning of the month. I'm a little late because there was CES and beginning of the year stuff that went on, but I have two builds for you guys today, a $600 gaming PC and a $900 gaming PC. These are all based on my best choices right now for what I think you should get if you've got about that much money to spend. And of course, if you want to see an actual build put together, check out my builds playlist because today I'm just going over parts lists. Now, I didn't post a straw poll last month, but going back to the one I did in November, I sort of wanted to rehash this. The $1,000 PC in 2018 versus what you can get for $1,000 now. And I actually started this going for a $1,000 PC. I ended up with a $900 PC, so that's good news, I suppose. And of course, if you want to vote on next month's, check out the straw poll. It's linked in the description. I'm just going for prices. I want to know how much you guys are currently thinking about spending on a gaming PC. And also bear in mind, this is just for the core components of the PC itself, not talking about a monitor, mouse, keyboard, or anything like that. So, let's get into the first build. This is the $900 gaming PC, and I'm not just going to talk about the parts that I chose for this one here. I'm going to talk about my thought process, my methodology for choosing the parts that I did choose, starting out with our CPU, which is an AMD Ryzen 5 2600, and that's usually what you might start off with. But let's take a look at what you can get for about $160, $170 right now. And basically what you'll find from Intel is a lot of dual core, sometimes quad core CPUs, but a lot of these do not have hyper-threading enabled, so you're only going to get 2 cores or 4 cores for that. For a 6-core, 12-thread processor, you can get the Ryzen 5 2600 for about $165. The nearest competitor is the Ryzen 5 1600X, which is just $5 cheaper. So I really see no good competition for this CPU in this price range if you want a decent amount of cores and threads, and you don't want to be spending $300 plus, which is what you're going to have to spend to get an 8-core non-hyper-threaded CPU on the Intel side, or even more than that if you want hyper-threading, and like the 9900K is like $500. So bang for the buck. I think this is the way to go, and there's nothing else that's really close to it. What's also nice about the 2600 is it comes with a Wraith Spire cooler installed, which is a perfectly adequate cooler to get you up and running. Doesn't even look that bad, performs just fine. You can upgrade it in the future. That's another thing I'm going to focus on as I go through this build is upgrade path, because I want you to be able to build the system right now for this price, but also maybe add to it in the future. That is the beauty of building your own PC. For a motherboard, we have the MSI B450 Tomahawk. Note the very good ratings here on PC Part Picker, as well as over here on Newegg. It's out of stock on Newegg right now, but this board's going to get you 4 memory slots, so you can expand your memory in the future. It has good power delivery, so not only can it handle some overclocking since it's a B450 motherboard, but if you're going to upgrade your 6-core to maybe an 8-core in the future, the power delivery on this motherboard can still handle it for only about a little over $100. There are cheaper B450 motherboards in this, but they might skimp on power delivery. Beyond that, there are some bells and whistles that this is missing, but it's a solid all-around board for just over $100, and it also has video out on the back, which is only important for the very last thing I'm going to talk about in this video. More on that in a minute though. For memory, I have a solid 16 gig 2x8 gig kit of G.Skill Ripjaws 5. This is 3200 speed memory. It's got a nice black finish that's going to match with most builds, and it should be Ryzen compatible. You just need to enable the XMP profile. And with Ryzen, you don't want to go for faster memory. 3000 speed or 3200 speed if you can afford it, and a 16 gig kit for about $120. I'm all in for that. That's way better memory prices than we were looking at last year. Now you're going to want storage, and for this I go for a 500 gig SATA SSD. If you go onto PC Part Picker, look at storage, use your filters, choose SSD, look at capacities in the 200 to about 640 gig range. That will give you both 500 gig class SSDs as well as 250 gig class SSDs. Sort by price per gigabyte, and you'll find you can get SSDs for as cheap as 10 to 12 cents per gigabyte. That means about $50 for a 500 gig class drive, or even about $30 for a 240 gig class drive. And again, there's lots of options down here. Some brands you may have heard of more than others. Team's L5 Lite is not necessarily the best SSD, but it's got your response time. It's going to get the job done, so it's perfectly adequate to get off the ground for an operating system drive. One other thing to point out here, when you're talking about storage, you can easily add more storage to the system. So the 500 gig drive will allow you to install Windows, some apps, maybe a couple games, but you're probably going to want to add to this in the future, but that's a really simple upgrade. For a graphics card, we now have the GeForce RTX 2060 6 gig available. This just launched. There's quite a few of these available for about $350. I went for this model. It's $10 more, but you get a bit better of a cooler with a dual fan solution and a nice clean looking back plate. This will get you GPU performance about in the same range as a GTX 1070 or 1070 Ti, looking back to last year, so it's a solid deal, I think, for that price. Lastly, we have a case and a power supply, and here's where you have a ton of options as well. The case you should spend probably about $40 to $60 on. The power supply about the same. I have a Cooler Master Master Box case right here, which is on sale. It's only temporary, so you might not be able to still get this deal for the MB600L if you wait a bit longer, but there's other cases in this range, and this is just a nice case, well built. It's only got a single 120mm fan, so consider adding a second one there, but it's got a power supply basement. It has an acrylic side panel, so you can still look in and see your build, and buy it within the next 11 hours or so probably by the time this video goes up, or else that deal won't be there anymore. Finally, for the power supply, the EVGA BQ series, 600 watts, 80 plus bronze rated for about $40. Again, there's other options for this, but you're looking for black cabling, 80 plus bronze rated or gold rated if you can spend a little bit more money on it. Partial modularity is nice, so you can leave out the cables that you're not going to use. And if you are looking at other power supply options, just make sure you're going with a reputable manufacturer. EVGA does a solid job. Corsair, Seasonic, and Cooler Master, all solid options there. But there you have it though. That is my build for just under $900 for all of those components. And I wanted to compare this to the one I did back in December. Now bear in mind the price has gone up for this because some of the components I used have gone up in price, but this was $1127, or this is $1127 if you were to buy it now. Still has a 2600, a B450 motherboard, a very comparable memory configuration. It's got a bit nicer of a storage drive, but that 1070 Ti is now $470, which just is very impractical if you're comparing it to the RTX 2060. And then you can see my case and power supply were just a little bit more expensive as well. So that's what led to the total price here of $1127. And I think bringing that down to $900 for just about the same performance is a good deal. So yay, 2019. Let's move on to my other build. This is a $600 gaming PC, and for this I took 3 of the same core components because again I wanted there to be an upgrade path. So I want to build the system for a lower price, but of course you could swap in the components from the $1,000 version and get yourself better performance in the long run. Now pay close attention to the CPU here. This is the Ryzen 3 1200, which is $95. It's a quad-core processor. There is the Ryzen 2200G, which is an APU, and I'm going to swap that in at the very end here and show you another alternative here. But if you're planning to buy a graphics card out of the gate, like the Radeon RX 580 8GB, which you can get for $170 right now, go for this Ryzen 3 1200 rather than the APU. Beyond that, the motherboard is the same, the case is the same, and the power supply is the same, but I still have the price at $586.13 right now. And I did that by going with that less expensive CPU, which is a quad core. This is a quad core without multi-threading, so 4 cores and 4 threads, and it actually runs a little bit lower of a frequency than the 2200G. The difference here is that the 2200G has integrated graphics, so this one is going to give you more available PCI Express lanes because 8 of them are not dedicated to the graphics. That means if you want to expand your system in the future to add like an M.2 NVMe drive, you'll be in a better situation with this chip than you would with the 2200G. That said, you do need a graphics card with the R3 1200 because it doesn't have integrated graphics. So for the $200 range right now, you've got the RX 580 8GB, or you have the GTX 1060 6GB. If you're looking at both of those, there's much better deals on the RX 580 8GB right now. You can get them as cheap as $170, maybe $190, whereas the cheapest 1060 6GB is $214. So for that reason, I went with the very well priced Power Color Red Dragon, which is available for $170 after a $20 mail-in rebate, dual fan cooler on this, and backplate too, so that's nice. Now you could use the same memory kit that I had in the first build. In this one, I saved about $20 or $25 by going with a DDR4 3000 kit. This is also RipJaws 5. It's also the red version, so it might stand out or clash with the color scheme a little bit. Honestly, it would probably be fine. The case has a red accent on it, so that's good. Just a little bit slower, DDR4 3000 versus the 3200 kit. I have a 240 gig SSD, so less SSD space, but again, still plenty of room for Windows and a few apps and maybe a game or two. And with just those changes, we've shaved about $300 off of the price. And again, we still have a lot of the same base core components, so you could upgrade to the parts from that $900 build if you so desired. Now I'm going to do one more thing here by hitting edit this parts list. And I removed the video card and the CPU. I'm going to switch the CPU over to the 2200G, which is still the same price at $95. This has integrated Vega graphics. It's perfectly adequate for 1080 gameplay. I have videos on this if you guys want to check them out where I do some gameplay testing and everything. And honestly, it's good gaming PC performance for integrated graphics. Of course, you're going to get a nice bump up if you go with a discrete graphics card, but that brings the total price for this system down to $416 or thereabouts. We'll call it $420. So with this, you could get away without having a graphics card, maybe add that in the future, maybe add any of the other components from that $900 build in the future, or add more storage, or do whatever you want. You have plenty of room in this case since it's a full-size ATX build. So just to loop back to my intro statement, for anyone who is looking to put together a gaming PC for less than $1,000, whether you're talking about $400, about $600, or about $900, this is what I'd recommend you put together. Of course, again, you got flexibility. Choose your own case. There's tons of ATX cases out there that you might like the look of better, maybe some features. There's other motherboards that are adequate in this range too with the B450 chipset. That is the beauty of building your own gaming PC. You can pick and choose the parts that you want that best suit your needs, but hopefully this has given you guys a good starting off point. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is my monthly build series. I'll be continuing this next month in February, which is in just a couple weeks already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoyed it. Links to all the parts lists and individual parts are down in the description below. Thanks again, guys, and we'll see you next time.